So, thank you for coming. I would like to start by just going around and introducing yourselves and telling me a little bit about each one of you and what your role in the venture is. So, shall we start with Lee?
Hi, my name is Catherine, and I am the CEO of this company, and I am responsible for the internal management. And
Um, yeah.
Hi, I'm Pon Premchun. I work with Tree over here in the technology part. I'm responsible for the back end of the coconut system, making sure that we have transactions going on and everything's working in the background. Um, Currently an undergrad at MIT.
Hi, I'm Trey. So I'm the CTO of this, and specifically working on the front end part of the application right now. And I'm also currently an undergrad at MIT.
Excellent.
I'm Brad Rue. I'm a senior at Harvard University, studying psychology and neuroscience. I'm the chief strategist for Coconut, so I take a look at our business plan and sort of long-term goals for where we want to be and what changes we want to make in the space. And I also take care of some communications.
Hi, my name is Kanto Kim. I'm a senior at Harvard studying environmental science and public policy. I'm the CEO of Coconut, so I manages every activities that we do in for Coconut.
How did you go from environmental into launching?
So I've been always interested in emerging technology. So when I first got into Harvard, I wanted to study more in the biology part. I moved to government and I moved to environmental science, and I've been doing a lot of startups since freshman year. So I think that kind of trajectory of trying new things have gotten me to interested in this new emerging technology.
And how did you guys get together? Because you're different ages, different schools, different points in your life. So what brought you guys together to do this?
So he and I did a road trip freshman together, and we wrote a book after it. So we wrote the wheelchair accessible tour guide in the United States, and then that's how he and I got really close to each other. And then she and I did a startup last year, which was incubated at Harvard Innovation Lab, and we worked with Tree before through that project. And Tree recommended us that Pond is a great data scientist who had an experience in Jane Street about financial tech. So that's how we all got together.
And so you got together, and the idea to work on this project evolved out.
So it evolved from a more genuine thought about the problem that we have in the cryptocurrency world and blockchain world. Because I myself used to like a lot about blockchain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, but the problem that a lot of people have about Ethereum and blockchain is that you cannot really use it in real life. So what we try to do is that how can we make so that people can buy a cup of coffee with whatever coin that you own. So we've been talking with our friends, and one night, one of my friends, who is a really close friend of mine, who's also a member but who cannot be over here, told me that we should develop something that we can integrate it with a point of sale system so that it's easier for people to use cryptocurrency in real life and bring about the usage of cryptocurrency in mainstream. So that's how we all started to see, there's a big potential in this field, and then we also want to bring this new emerging technology to be used in real life faster and more efficiently through our technology.
That was something that really interested me when I read about your company, is that you're actually taking what a lot of people are doing as a concept or as a proof of concept, and you're actually building something to bring that into the real world. So you want to talk a little bit about specifically your company and the solution that you're developing?
So what we do is that there are a lot of companies that try to do a similar idea and different approaches. And what we saw a lot from happening is that people are coming up with this idea that may happen in 5 or 10 years. And we were thinking that we right now have the technology right now that can enable people to use cryptocurrency in real life and convert it into fiat currency and pay the merchants or whoever is responsible getting paid in the currency they want. We have the technology. And that's what we're doing. So what we're doing is that we're matching up user and merchants or user and user from other blockchain ecosystem, and then hook them up with liquidity provider that we know of, such as exchange platform or hedge fund, to provide liquidity for the merchant.
I also remember reading that you are developing the technology here, but you're actually going to start launching it in Asia, correct?
Yeah.
In different Asian markets. So why that strategy?
So what we thought that is that yes, the U.S. market, China market are the biggest markets in the world. But what we want to do is that we want to grow more responsibly and more in a more robust way, so that we can test it out in a smaller market. So we have a really good connection in South Korea and in the traditional financial world. So we are one of our advisors are in one of the biggest banks in Korea and top financial security firms and top 3 POS companies. So we have a connection over there, and we can learn things faster over there. And what we want to do is that master over there and expand to other Asian countries, learn the lessons from there, and then when the regulatory and then environment is ready over here, it's so that we can jump right in and then make things faster with the lessons that we learned from in Asia.
So you find that it's easier to launch there because of regulatory factors?
Regulatory factors and also the connections that we have.
Okay. So you're leveraging your network.
Yeah.
Excellent. How have you funded this venture? Are you self-funded? Have you looked for any kind of angel investment, venture capital?
So right now we're not looking for funding for sake. So we're because what we want to do is that we want to develop the technology first, and we're self-funding right now, and we've won some competitions like the Bitcoin. MIT Bitcoin competition, so we're using those funds that we won from the competition to self-fund and try to make the products first.
Okay, but eventually you will need funding in order to grow the company and implement, certainly the travel back and forth to Asia, certainly, meetings that you have to take, and there's inherent costs. So what kind of avenues are you exploring for that growth?
So what we're looking for, so we're probably going to be looking for seed funding and private funding sometime in early May. And through those means of fundraisings, we're probably going to fund ourselves to get ourselves a little further next step.
Interesting. And long term, is your strategy to exit, or is your strategy to basically continue with the company and grow?
So long-term strategy, as you know, this field is rapidly changing, and we don't really know which players are going to come in and what they're going to play the role in. So our strategy is to make ourselves as accommodating to the situation coming in, because our motto is to be able to be the best that we can be at that situation. And if we think the best strategy that we think at that moment is to exit, we might choose to exit. But at this point, we have not really thought about this, because our first priority right now is to focus on developing the product and get the things out that we want to get out.
Yeah, I would say our ultimate goal is to bring cryptocurrency payments into the mainstream, so that this technology is actually something that has a real impact on people's lives. So that's something that we can start to do almost immediately, because the technologies are existing to put people in touch with solving that shape problem. So we'll do our part to make that bring into the real world as much as possible. I would describe that as our fundamental goal.
Okay. Have you encountered any difficulties with the fact that cryptocurrency, in order to do a lot of these transactions, does require technology, and in a lot of emerging markets, we discussed that there may not be such an easy access to technology. Have you considered how to overcome that factor?
So what we saw that is that actually technology helps us to reach those problems, because the problem that we're trying to solve is through the internet, and we have engineers who are pioneering in AI and backend from MIT, and we're confident that we can actually can secure talents from here and bring them to Singapore, where we're thinking about incorporating our company and bring the technology from the frontiers in the world in Boston to over there to develop what we want to develop.
I can also say that payments technology, our systems are able to operate as long as you have a smartphone, and that's something that's actually widely available across the world today.
And also the market that we're the first target market is South Korea, where they probably have one of the fastest internet coverage and biggest cryptocurrency user, and also widespread of the smartphone users. So we think that that's a perfect market to get in first and test our ideas.
Absolutely. So what have been some of the difficulties that you guys have encountered so far, be it starting a business, be it developing the technology, the market analysis? What are some of the difficulties that you've encountered so far?
So I guess the biggest difficulty that we have is the market analysis, because it's such a new world that it is quite difficult to grasp what we're really getting into. And also the most difficult part is that we're making a market and also getting into a market that has not been created. So trying to grasp what we're actually doing and what we're trying to get was the hardest part. And that's where we are asking a lot of help from our advisors who have started similar things when the internet was first coming in and people didn't really know what they're really getting into. So we're getting a lot of help from professors from MIT and Harvard and a lot of venture capitalists over here to just grasp a little bit what we are actually doing and what we can potentially achieve.
I mean, and definitely like the regulatory landscape that changes almost every single day. At first it felt kind of like the fire alarm that goes off every day, but at this point it kind of pretty much signifies any challenges that the venture in this space has. It's just you just not only that you don't know the market, but you don't know the terrain that you're gonna fight in and what kind of rules you're subjected to. So I guess it is both a challenge and a blessing. A blessing, it is a challenge because we don't know what's happening. A blessing because we're young enough to be a small company and we have that flexibility. And the fact that Coconut is positioned in a unique position where we're not a fully blockchain technology, but we're a fintech company that works in this emerging market. We can definitely play with that regulatory landscape and take advantage of this unique position that we have.
And also one thing that we commonly found by talking with a lot of venture capitalists and the frontiers or pioneers in this field or in technology world, and the consensus that we felt is that blockchain technology and cryptocurrency will last. How long? It will probably might take 10 years or 15 years, but this is a technology that will last and change our how we interact with each other. And so we're hopeful in that sense that what we're getting into is something of a futuristic and something that we can actually make changes in the world.
You also mentioned you want to incorporate in Singapore. Why did you choose Singapore as a place to incorporate your company?
So we have an aspirations to go global. So even though our target market first is South Korea and second is Thailand, we have this aspirations to go global. And right now the regulatory landscape about cryptocurrency, we believe that Singapore is very well laid and very friendly with this new emerging market. And also from looking from the side of acquiring talents, it has a vibe of very unique, international, and a lot of tech talents are over there too. So we want to incorporate it there for those reasons.
Now, and again, we keep going back to the regulatory issues. And one of the interesting things about blockchain is that it is essentially a almost universal global currency, certainly there's different coins, but that coin can be traded from anywhere. But the regulations will be different from country to country. Have you put any thought into how to overcome that, or will you simply adjust to each country? Do you feel that there might be countries where you may not be able to operate?
So we certainly believe there are probably going to be countries that we cannot operate because of the regulatory landscape. They might just not allow the people inside the country to use cryptocurrency as a means of exchange. But what we see as a commonality is that even though countries that have banned the use of a cryptocurrency start noticing the potential that it might have to disrupt the technology or the industries to move forward. So we're very positive in that sense. And also our main goal is to bring cryptocurrency and blockchains to mainstream. And then what we see is that not following the regulatory landscape is probably not going to be a means to bring the technology to the mainstream. And we are thinking deeply about working closely with the regulatory body to be able to bring a more positive impact to the world. Because what we see by looking at a lot of articles and personally talking with the regulatory personnel from South Korea and Thailand is that their main concern is they want to prevent money laundering or capital outflow. And as long as we can comply with the regulatory bodies, we believe that this is a technology that even the regulatory bodies are actually thinking that this can change and actually boost up their economy.
I can also say that we're aiming to play for the long term, right? So even if some countries are initially hesitant to sort of enter into this new technology and, until they have a better sense of what it is, we do believe very firmly in the idea that this technology will transform daily life, and that eventually, as the economy matures and these countries see the benefits that it's bringing, they will eventually open up the regulatory process as well.
Now, your platform works independent of which coin a person wants to use, but there's been a lot of problems with certain coins not necessarily being as stable as others. Do you have any concerns about any liability? Have you looked into how to protect yourselves from somebody saying your platform allowed a transaction that was with a coin that maybe is no longer on the market, or how do you handle the sheer volume? I think there's 1,500 coins last count.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you handle that a platform that runs that many different types of currencies?
Sure, so I think this is one of the biggest challenges in the cryptocurrency space right now. There are sort of a number of pieces of that, so I can break down a couple pieces if you guys mostly draw add, but we sort of foresee that a lot of companies, as they're bringing different blockchain solutions to different parts of everyday life, different industries, from social networking, supply chain management, financial solutions, that different coins will emerge into the market. Now, this is going to be very overwhelming for consumers as they have to deal with, which currency is accepted where, how much of my money is distributed in this currency versus this currency. And what we really want to do is make a new conception of money. So money is not just a currency that you own and that you hold all of your transactions in one currency, but rather that you have a distributed portfolio of different currencies which are more applicable in certain situations, but which all can be used everywhere. And the way we do that is we solve it as a sort of matching problem. So we make it so that any currency, somebody's going to want that and be willing to pay in fiat currency for your currency. So we pass the fiat currency on to anybody you want to pay. And then so that you're able to make direct transactions with every single currency you own is now good as money.
So you're not pre-qualifying or disqualifying any particular coin. You're leaving it up to the market, essentially.
Yeah. And as long as we know how to trade that currency, like that is fine to be in our system. Of course, if you have a coin that is like vastly volatile and we don't know of anything how to control it or how to deal with it, maybe that's not the best to include in our system, but that's pretty much all the requirement we have on a coin.
And I should add that some exchange platforms, or in order for us to be able to trade it, an exchange platform has to be able to list it. So at the end of the day, some exchange platform is saying we're willing to list this coin on our platform, and so it's from that perspective, it's been validated by some player in the system.
Yeah, and also what we're saying is that as long as there's a market that we can trade your coin on behalf of you, and then trade it with something else, we should be able to do it. But if there's a coin that is not traded, or if there's no market for it, we won't be able to put that into our system.
Because technically that would mean that the coin has no value, right?
Sure. I would think of it as stocks, right? A stock is a kind of Bitcoin. If someone can trade this stock with me, if someone can trade this Bitcoin with me, I can work with it. Of course, if there's a company whose stock is completely worthless, or whose stock cannot be predicted by any means or form, maybe you would not want to deal with it. But other than that, we're not tied with the Bitcoin technology. We're not tied with Ethereum technology. That's how we are able to be independent of the coin.
And we keep going subtly back to this theme of ethics, themes of, if you will, your corporate culture. How does that play into what you guys want to build as far as a company? Because clearly you seem that you mentioned eliminating certain types of fraud and money laundering. You also seem to have a strong moral compass. So does that also play a factor in your developing of this technology and where you want to take your company?
Yes, that's probably one of the core reasons why we wanted to do this, because we personally all believe that this technology can actually transform the world, but because it is such an emerging market and this is the wild, wild west, there are a lot of things that are happening that colors this technology in a bad way. And what we want to do is that, hey, let's look at it more objectively, and let's try to reason out ourselves, where can we actually put this technology to the means where public can use and then general people can use. And that's one of the reasons why we're really pushing forward, working with the regulatory bodies, and so we can bring about wider adoption of this technology. And second of all, one of our core motto of the team is that we want to be able to make people to do whatever they want to do. We want to help them accomplish what they want to do. And I think that's probably the culture that we're in, and we're young students too, and also probably young entrepreneurs in a few months. And we want to empower people in a way to say, you're the owner of your life and you can do whatever you want to do. And in that sense, it kind of shows into our platform, or the fundamental behind the app is that we are giving you the power to use whatever you want you have the way you want it.
Anybody want to add anything? I just want to give everyone a chance to talk. If you guys have an opinion, please bring it forth. So.
And I think personally, right, when I tell people that I'm working on a crypto company, my grandma would be like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
My mom would be like, "Can that be trusted?" There's some atmosphere going on around the crypto business. People who are not familiar with it think that maybe it's like a scammy kind of business. So because of that, I want to be really transparent. I want our company to follow strong ethics, so that I can proudly say to my mother and my grandmother and my friends that what I'm doing here is for the good of the world, and I'm actually doing an honest job and trying to change the world in the best way that I can do.
And that's probably one of the reasons why we want to bring a technology that can change right now, instead of promising of the far-fetched future that we probably don't even know whether we can achieve. Is that we want to be proud of ourselves and be able to say to people, hey, this is a thing that we can do it right now. And as long as that's something that we're not really sure of, we don't want to promise that, because we are not confident. And we as a company will probably only gonna say things that we're probably 99% sure that we can do it. And that's probably, that's also something that we always talk about in the meetings. And is that can we actually do this? Is this something feasible? Or are we saying something because we want to make more reputation? And no, we don't want to do that. We want to be honest with people and forthright. And
I can also say that sort of fundamentally, one of the really exciting things about blockchain is it puts power back in the hands of individuals. So a lot of sort of the current dialogue around the internet is recrying how a couple of corporations have sort of seized enormous amounts of power over our societies, over our minds as individuals. And one of the really exciting potentials of blockchain technology is to leverage that power and distribute that back into the hands of the crowd. So that's something that we're really excited to be facilitating that movement into the everyday life.
And in order to facilitate, we need to be trustworthy and we need to be ethical and we need to have morals behind making this protocol or technology so that people can trust.
And that's one of the main reasons why our timeline right now is that we're not currently opening up any sales, but we're very harsh on our execution of our product. We went to Korea just about a couple of weeks ago and we secured all these partnerships. And we're currently building our product, which will be tested in an alpha phase just like next month. And all of this is a product before we ask for any kind of money, which is not a common thing in this landscape, whereas we should raise the money first before anything comes out. And that's something that we can proudly say, hey, here's the work, here's what we did, and here's what we're going to do. And you can be so sure that we're going to do what we say we're going to do, because we are very real, very hard, and we're trying to be very honest in this landscape because we believe in the technology. And only honest people, I believe, would persist in the business world.
You are correct, and I admire the vision, but certainly you may find that when you go for a venture capitalist, they may have certain expectations. You guys really are going to stand on your ethics, and I think that's very admirable. Are you concerned about that at all?
We do have met people who were a little concerned in a way that we're too honest in a way, and
Well, business people like to overpromise.
yes,
It's-
and what we generally saw is that yes, there are people who will not like us because we are too honest, or we are not promising for the things that we cannot do. But we're saying that okay, it's fine. There are a lot of people out there, and we want to work with people who actually share our vision and who believes in this ethics. So we're fine with having a group of people who don't like us. So we're confident in a way. I think that's a little courage that we have, and or maybe a little bit of a audacity that we have to say that we are confident in what we're doing. So we want to work with people who actually believes us, and then we will do our best to convince people to believe what we believe. But in the end, if they cannot believe what we have, I think that's a reality of life.
That's awesome.
And in the end, I think we are, in some way a financial company. So I think being trustworthy to the public, that is of interest of investors for sure. Like they would want to invest in a company that the public can trust. So I don't think we are following the ethics just for our own satisfaction, but we are sort of doing that also because it's good for our business.
And of course, there's a lot of things that we've learned from our advisors already, and I think there'll be a lot more things to learn.
No, I wish that more companies had your corporate culture, to put it that way. So, going back a little bit then to this empowerment of the people through cryptocurrency, there's been a lot of debate about that being a double-edged sword. Because on the one hand, yes, you can have anonymity, or you can have a certain amount of privacy, but that also lends itself to, as we said, money laundering or the purchase of illegal substances in different countries. How do you feel about that? Where would you say the line should be drawn between somebody's right to privacy, but also the right to safety by auditing and prevention of illegal actions?
So what we want to do is that we do want to prevent illegal activities that are happening with the crypto world, or being able to use this vision is to work closely with the regulatory bodies, and if they say, hey, this account seems like there's an illegal activity going on, we are willing to cooperate with them and then say that it looks like something going on, and then we should be able to release those data to the regulatory bodies, and I think that's what we believe as to bring this technology to the mainstream. Because if it is used continuously for illegal activities or dealing with drugs or getting into dark web, we inherently think that there is going to be a fundamental problem of being adopted by a large number of people. And we want to prevent that, and we want to be in the frontier of making the rules, saying that, hey, this is something that everyone can use, and we have to oblige by the rules that are set by the governments or set by the group of people, and who will prevent something like this happening.
Yeah, I would say we do believe in a society of law, so we believe that sort of people should be complying with laws, and so that's sort of the philosophy that we take. So we do believe very fundamentally in people's right to privacy. We're not going to release people's information unless, for example, they've been subpoenaed by a judge, or for example, they are there is a court order to investigate certain fraud or other bad financial transactions. So then, in the case of laws, we would comply.
No, I absolutely understand about compliance, but I'm asking, are you going to have any mechanism that will maybe flag some suspicious accounts? Or are you going to be completely hands off, and only when somebody comes with a subpoena, then you take action?
Sure. So we want again mainstream sort of use of this new technology. So we don't want the kind of people who are doing shady transactions on our platform. So that's absolutely something that we would try to flag and remove.
I think it is kind of built into our product actually. The product is that we allow the businesses to accept cryptocurrency, right? So anything like our service is active when you're buying certain goods from illegal business entities that exist in the real world, either physically or online or a different blockchain system. So in a way, if you're thinking about, like, let's say let's talk about money laundering. They're probably not gonna money laundering through like buying like 100 cups of coffee or like 1,000 kind of things. One thing that we don't allow people to do right now, and it's not in our business plan, is to allow people to send money to each other, right? Because that's where the problem that you're talking about is happening, because people can just send money from one wallet to another and just don't know where it goes, hundreds, thousands, or like millions of dollars. But what we do is that we're just working with the business entities that are already legal, and every time when we participate into the transaction, there's a notice we're dealing with legal goods and legal money that's being transacted. So in that way, I think in our product, we are kind of shielded from the big money laundering things, and we definitely have to comply by the law to work with these business entities.
And our system makes a clear distinction of merchants and customers. Only merchants can accept money. So we can imagine, having merchants register with us, we verify who they are. Similar to, products like Square, right? They have to know who the merchants are. So that's one way we can verify people who receive money. Another mechanism that we can imagine putting in our system is to limit the size of transaction, because we think, how much do people pay at a time at a grocery store, right? You're not paying $1 million to a merchant when you swipe a credit card, right? So that's like another mechanism that we can imagine putting in place.
I was just reading the check spent $70,000 at a Walmart, so you never know who spends. So are there any other subjects that you guys would like to bring up? Any other talking points that I haven't covered?
I think one of the really unique and important things about our business is that we allow other businesses to receive payments in fiat currency. So I think that's something that's very important for other businesses to be able to fully accept cryptocurrency options. So I want to make sure that that's remembered.
What also is interesting is that from what I was reading, your fee structure for the transaction is also much lower than what traditional credit cards are currently charging. How do you accomplish that?
Sure. So traditional credit card structures come with many middlemen. So you've got people from banks to value-added networks to the person who's operating the software. So in this sequence of transactions, you've got many people taking a little cut every step of the way. And what we do is we just eliminate all of those middlemen. And by doing so, we can dramatically reduce transaction fees. So our transaction fees, we estimate to be able to offer fees about half of those of Visa or MasterCard, which we think businesses will really appreciate because it'll allow them to have higher profit margins.
And we've seen examples. Can I mention like companies' names? So
I have no problem with that.
We've seen examples of technology solving the fee problem. Traditionally, if you want to invest online, buy stocks, you go to these online brokers, right? And you pay huge fees every time you buy a stock or sell a stock. And now you have apps like Robinhood, which you can buy and sell everything for free. And that's because the company is much smaller and they have technology that helps with all the transactions going on. And that's kind of the model that we can follow, right? We have a small company with heavy technology, right? We don't have a lot of humans doing all the work, and so that saves us a lot of costs.
Do you expect any pushback from the traditional institutions when they see that you may be cutting into some of their business?
We definitely see it happening, but we think that that's a hurdle that we have to jump, and we have to spend a lot of time to convince those people why this can benefit them too, in a way.
So you're hoping to make them your allies?
Yeah.
And in a way, they have been reaching out to us too, and like in a way, consulting us like, okay, where do we see this going, and how can we make this work together with whatever traditional financial businesses that is in the area. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we study in South Korea too, because we have a lot of connections there. That's just to see how we can work together.
Was there anything else you wanted to?
Yeah, I think from the online audience, they will ask about what's your projection on how to evaluate cryptocurrency. What's the value of the Bitcoin? What's the value of Ethereum? So, what's the proper way to do the evaluation?
Sure. So we anticipate working with a variety of liquidity providers, and what we will do on the back end is, which Toon's built, which is great, is to sort of predict which liquidity provider of our multiple partners will offer the best rate for every person in the system, from our consumers to our businesses. And then what that'll allow us to do is find the partner with the most optimal exchange rate, and then use that as our exchange rate.
And also, just to go back to your question, to be able to evaluate a coin accurately, I think that would be $1 billion question that everyone's trying to get into. And it's a new industry that nobody knows what is going around, and I think with traditional economics or traditional business sense, this is an area that people have difficult time grasping. So to say in public, we don't really know the rubrics of accurately saying this is worth $2 billion or this is worth $3 billion because of this X idea or B idea. I think it's quite difficult to see, but I think only the time will tell at the end. This is kind of like a thing where people can look from the back and say, oh, this is actually what happened, and this is probably how we're going to evaluate from the future technology that we're going to come about. So if you really want to dive into accurately assessing the value of these projects or coins, I think the lessons can be learned from the internet boom that we had in the late 1990s, early 2000. But it might also be a completely different thing. So it's quite difficult for us to say like we know the rubric.
But we all believe that this Bitcoin, Ethereum hold some values because like the miners are paying electricity for it, so it holds some real values from the real world. So we definitely believe that it has values.
So instead of being based on gold, it's being based on the energy to flow the system.
We're not trying to exactly predict the value of Bitcoin. Like the power of prediction is not how we make money necessarily, because the most simplest way of running Coconut, let's say, I want to buy an ice cream, right? And the ice cream is $10. I'm gonna go to the exchange and try to sell Bitcoin for $10, and I'm gonna tell the customer this is the Bitcoin you have to pay. But there's no volatility in I know exactly when I trade how much Bitcoins it takes to get the $10, and that's I can go and charge the customers. So we're just sitting in the middle, trying to facilitate all this trading, and that's how we can come up with a rate for the customers. Now, the manner that we trade, who do we trade with, what liquidity providers do we can we do business with to get the best rate for the customer. That is our business value. Again, we're not predicting what the Bitcoin is going to be worth in the next hour or day or anything like that. If it goes, if it goes down, if it goes up, we're agnostic with that. That's not our business.
Similar to exchanging fiat currencies from one nation to another.
Yeah.
Right.
You're simply the transaction provider.
Right.
You're not really defining the prices.
And of course, if tomorrow Bitcoin goes down, to $10 per Bitcoin, maybe customers would pull out because they don't have a wallet anymore. But as if you're not hitting that kind of tragedy yet, we're fine.
What else can I ask?
So I want to add that to be able to tell about the price is a really hard question. So let's say we don't let's say about this table, anyone can tell what the price of it. It can be $100 or it can be $1,000 if it's has more memorable values to somebody. So it actually depends on the one who is willing to pay for it.
Sure. But as you mentioned before, there's a base cost of materials,
Yeah.
there's a base cost of labor, there's a base cost of marketing, of logistics, of getting that table here from wherever it was manufactured. So, but with blockchain, it's a little bit, we're still trying to figure out how those costs really play into the prices, because it seems like there is a lot more speculative value in different coins than there is the actual cost of electricity in a mine.
Or whether those costs actually play a role at all, or
Right.
that's a question that we have to answer or we have to think about. And I think, as to say it again, we'll probably will not know in a few days. We'll
Sure.
probably know in after 10 years. Maybe that it played a role, maybe it didn't.
We sort of believe that as the blockchain economy matures, these questions are being thought about today. There are many solutions that we think are very interesting, from providing some value within your network for the coin. So at the end of the day, somebody has to be willing to accept whatever asset you're doing, and if that person is your platform, which is universally agreed to accept the asset, that's one avenue. Another avenue, people have been trying to create stable coins. We have sort of mixed opinions on whether those are the different strategies are good or not. And in the meantime, until those questions are really ironed out and solved from the user side, to insulate the company side from any question about value, we simply provide payments in fiat currency.
Are you in any way concerned that people may use your platform to almost use the exchanges and the different fluctuations? Can your platform be used as an almost currency exchange for profit?
We don't
I know
allow
this,
we don't allow that to happen from a design perspective,
okay.
because if you want to exchange your currency, you would have gone to exchange and you wouldn't have to go through us, right? What we do is that we allow you to walk up to a coffee shop. Let's say you walk up to Starbucks, and then we allow you to say, hey, I have these different kind of links. I have RMB, I have USD, I have Ripple, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and instead of thinking that, okay, it's a Starbucks in Beijing, I'm gonna use RMB. I'm saying, wait, I have this kind of link, I'm just gonna use it. Just gonna use Ethereum, Ripple, doesn't matter, because when you use Coconut, you just pay, and then you just get your coffee from your perspective. But then the work behind it, the things that we do is that the merchants would get paid in fiat currency. So in a way, when you use Coconut, we're not sitting in there when you think about how do I exchange money. But you look at it as, okay, I want to just spend money, and I don't have to worry what kind of money it is. I can just spend it. So in that sense, we're not trying to be an exchange platform. And we don't exclusively work with exchange platforms. We're planning to work with hedge funds. We're trying to use technology and the business executions to find out what is the best way for you to use these different kinds of money seamlessly and with the lowest fee possible. And that's where we bring value. We bring that seamless experience. We bring that we just take that headaches out and makes your money money anywhere you go, and that's what we do.
Thanks. Thanks. So just to add a few more questions then. So we talked a little bit about maybe the cost of a particular coin being tied to mining, and originally the idea was that this being this distributed network, but I'm starting to see larger entities creating these mining centers, and it's how do you feel about where that aspect of cryptocurrency is going, where the control over the mining may be in the hands, once again, of several small entities, which may give them some power over the industry?
I think so. One thing is that doesn't really directly affect our business. As long as there is a coin out there that people are willing to use to buy things and sell things, like we don't necessarily have to care how that coin is being mined. Now it may indirectly affect us. If some business guy who owns a lot of Bitcoin tries to like drop the price, maybe that would affect us. But in a direct way, like that's not what we're concerned of. But I don't know if you guys have opinions on the topic.
So I think it's the nature of capital and nature of wealth. Wherever there's a profit going on, there's people with greater wealth coming in to take advantage of that capital, and then of course they can influence more power or influence better than the people who have less capital. I think that's what's happening over here. Inherently, the technology in itself is to distribute the power in a general sense, but as this technology becomes more widely used, there are bigger players coming in, and I think that is something that we cannot prevent. But also, the technology will inevitably allow it to be more distributed than the technology that we had before. So I'm a little optimistic in a way, even if they do hold maybe 20% of whatever coin, there's going to be a chance where they will see, okay, if there is an opportunity for them to make money and they will probably sell, then it will be distributed against other people.
There's a fantastic article in the New York Times magazine that sort of laid into this exact question. So there's a prominent theory in technology, the journalist Tim Wu, I believe, promulgated called the master switch, which is this idea that at the beginning, a new technology is aiming to spread power to the people from the centralized control, and that inevitably some large entity will come back and take control over everything. So we saw this with radio and then the internet, and this article in the New York Times took this argument and breaks down how blockchain could be different. So it takes, for example, looking at GPS technology is not something that's controlled by a single giant entity, but rather GPS, because of inherently how it was built from the start, is an open protocol that anybody can use. So instead of having to go to the GPS company to get my GPS coordinates anywhere I go, I can have Google use my GPS, or I can have some small app use my GPS. And similarly, if blockchain is built from the ground up with these this sort of open source protocol, and again, that'll vary by the use case. If it's built from the ground up with that intention, we actually can avoid some of the bad consequences we've seen in other industries.
Are there any parallel markets that you guys are currently looking at? Are there any other products or any other services that you guys feel you could expand into to grow your company?
I'm thinking for an exchange. I don't know if you guys would agree. But like,
Apparently I poked a beehive.
because when I travel to another country, what's the fee that I pay for my changing from US dollars to British pound? I paid a huge fee for that. If Coconut can come in and people can take their currency or take a Bitcoin and use it anywhere in the world, like that might be one area where we can compete with. Like if you can provide smaller fee, then you can make market out of that.
Yeah, that industry is something that we've talked about, because that market is huge. Exchanging cryptocurrencies because theoretically you can change dollars to Bitcoin and Bitcoin to pound if there's a bigger market for Bitcoin. But this is a very sensitive issue because there's you have to directly work with and probably the feds or the central banks are not going to be happy with what we're doing. So this is something that we have to look into and see what kind of means that we can creatively use so that we can tap into this market and then actually make it better. So that when you're trying to change dollars to pound, or let's imagine that I want to buy a house in England. And then we saw an article saying that I probably have to pay processing fee about like 10% just to get enough money to send it over to British pound and buy the house over there. That's a lot of burden for anyone. And we want to diminish that. And then also by doing that, I think we can make the efficiency of the global economy a little faster.
Yeah, and as long as we can find a transparent and legitimate way to do that, I think one enormous market could be international businesses. So international businesses have to make purchases across all the different currency zones that they're working in. So if we're allowing, for example, Apple to make purchases in China with US dollars at an exchange rate that's better than the current middleman-heavy currency exchange industries, then as long as we're able to do that in a way that's legitimate and compliant with the banks in all the different zones to look into that as a very promising area.
You guys are looking to really disrupt some very well-established.
Well, we believe that people should be able to do what they want to do, right? And if you're slapping heavy fees on people because you're just running around in the middle, we think that there is room for disruption.
And even if we haven't disrupted, or even if we don't disrupt that, we can learn a lot from that industry. There are a lot of new technologies recently that try to make forex cheap for common people. We can learn from them, see what they do, maybe adapt some of their techniques to use in our system. Because in the end, we are exchanging kind of business, trading one currency to another. So there are some things to be learned from there, even if we don't go into.
But there's something that we can use our own technology to apply to those markets for sure.
Have you considered maybe doing that, consulting for these companies as a way to risk that?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's what they kind
Thank
of
you for
talk
the idea.
Well, I mean, you're self-funding, and yes, you're winning different competitions, and I don't know how to phrase this. Sorry. So you guys are self-funding, and currently, of course. But the longer you can do that, the better, I think, because the more control you retain over the direction that you want to take with your company. So, and again, you're working in markets that are still looking for answers, and you guys seem to be very adept at understanding the questions and certainly finding possibilities. So, have you considered maybe working alongside? You've mentioned working alongside some of these entities, but have you considered that as well as a way to prolong that term until you need that funding?
We haven't, and that's a possibility that we can actually talk after this. Thank you for the idea.
My pleasure. We good? All right.
I guess because the last thing that we can say is that we are a young group and we're really passionate and we are a set of go-getters and we actually went to Korea because we had this idea for about 2 months and we were building products and we're like, oh, why don't we actually go to Korea? And then we actually decided to go to Korea 1 week before spring break, and then we flew over there and made some amazing deals with POS companies and largest internet cafe franchise in Korea and exchange platforms over there. So I think the biggest advantage and biggest asset that we have is this passion that we have and also the execution that we have to get things done. So we're not really. People always say that ideas can change, and we also believe that. Maybe this idea may not be valid in a month, or maybe not valid in a year or 2. That's fine, and we're fine. And because we have firm belief in ourselves that we're strong enough to adapt and then spin it off to something else, or make it more lucrative for the people and more efficient for the market, as long as we have this mission to change the world in a better place. So we have those strong beliefs, so I think that's where we are, and that's where we want to go.
But you touched upon something that is very, very clearly going to help you succeed, and that is the ability to adapt. Because, yeah, markets change and industries change, but if you're able to not necessarily be ahead, but simply roll with the punches, if you will, and adapt to the changes that are coming, then you can certainly survive. You can certainly not just survive, but thrive. So I definitely think you guys don't even worry about being young, because this is a young industry. And I very much encourage you to keep going.
Thank you.
Thanks
You
so
guys
much.
have a very bright future.
Thank you.